Hello everyone and welcome back to another video on my channel. Today I'm going to be doing my long overdue review of the Skechers Razor FG. This is a pair of boots that I've had for I believe 7 months now. I got them back in April, and in that time I've put a lot of miles on them. As you can see, they are very worn down, very beat up, very used. But I've put them through games, practices, training sessions, all sorts of things just to get a better sense of what these boots are like. And I would have liked to have this review done at least a month and a half ago. But if you guys have been keeping up with me, I've been dealing with a meniscus injury, which has been, really hindering my ability to train. So I've been struggling to really get the B-roll footage for this. But now that I have that, I'm able to get this video out for you guys so you guys can see it. And, with a preemptive jump into what I think of the boots, these boots are extremely underrated. And it's a shame that they're made by Skechers, not because Skechers is a bad brand or anything, but it's because of the fact that Skechers doesn't have the same kind of brand appeal that the big three brands have, like your Adidas, your Pumas, and your Nikes. And because of that, I feel like a lot of people will sleep on these boots, even though they are top contenders on the market right now, especially if you're a player with wide feet. So throughout this video, I'm going to talk about what my thoughts are on the boots from a pros versus cons perspective. And then during that kind of, pros, cons, dialogue going on, I'm also going to talk about some midpoints that I'd say they're kind of like, they could be pros for you or cons for you, depending on what you prefer in your football boots. And then beyond that, I'll also give you guys some extra recommendations about, things about the price, how to get the boots, and any extra information that you need to make your true decision on whether you want to pick up a pair of the Skechers Razor. And before we get into the true review, I'd just like to ask you guys, if you do enjoy my content, if you were anticipating this video, or you like what you see here and anything else that's on my channel, then please like, comment, and subscribe. It would mean a lot to me. It would show me that you guys really enjoy the content and also that you want to see more. Without further ado, let's get into this review. So to start things off, we're going to talk about the pros, and there are a lot of pros with this football boot, at least for me. First, I want to talk about the upper. Beginning at the upper, we have this forefoot over here, which is very similar to the Vapor 10's upper. If you guys remember that football boot, it had something called Teijin Synthetic, which wrapped the entire upper of the football boot. With this boot, it's just here on the forefoot, and then it's linked with a seam to the rest of the actual upper. But this upper material is so nice. It's very soft, very malleable, very plush. And when you're taking touches with the ball or dribbling or trying to control it, the ball just feels very connected to your foot. It's barefoot enough to give you that super pure and pingy touch on the ball that you would want from a speed boot, but also has a nice amount of, softness and cushion to it, so it doesn't feel like it's something too plasticky or too uncomfortable like the X Crazy Fast. And stay tuned, I'll have my review for that coming out soon as well. When you link this to the actual main upper, which is called Fit Knit, so this like knit area that makes up the rest of the football boot, you get one of the most comfortable packages I've ever experienced. I can't describe how well this knit just wraps around my foot, and is really there on par with, the best knitted boots out there, such as the Mercurial Vapor 16, which we have now, although this came out at the time of the Mercurial Vapor 15. It was on par with stuff like the New Balance Furon, even though I haven't tried those, but I've heard they're very comfortable. Just very comparable to a lot of boots that have knit uppers. So this linkage is very good. It's very thin, very malleable, very soft. The break-in time was next to none with these because of how soft and malleable these materials are. And also, I'm going to jump into this a little early, but because of how soft and malleable the materials are, it also molded to the foot very well. And because I have wide feet, it's even better because these are already shaped in a wide way, so that moldability that you get from the upper is enhanced even more by how soft and malleable this upper is. Like I said, with performance, the overall full upper is very thin, barefoot, pingy, and nice to the touch, but still provides enough cushion and support so that you feel protected when you're wearing the boots. Obviously, with any speed boot, it's not going to be the most protective thing in the world, but it still does a very good job of making you fit in the boots. The next pro would be the actual shaping. As I just mentioned, this football boot has a very anatomical construction, and what I mean by that is that most football boots today, they are more designed around the tight fit, the narrow fit, whereas Skechers, their football boots, including this and the SKX01, they go for a more anatomical approach where the boot kind of follows the outline of a traditional foot. And now, not all feet are the same, but you generally have like that narrowness towards the heel, and then it widens out as you get towards the toes. The Razor follows that kind of pattern as well as the SKX01, and because of that, this makes this boot very accommodating for wide-footed players like myself. If you're in the market for a speed boot and you have wide feet, this is probably the number one thing I would recommend out of everything that I've tried. I know there are some potentially better alternatives out there, such as stuff from Mizuno, which is leather, or the New Balance Huron, even the new Sokita Scudetta, I believe that's what it's called. Those are apparently very good for wide feet as well. But from what I've tried, this is fantastic. I didn't have any real pain or blistering on my instep or my lateral arch because this just kind of makes that space available for your foot. And like I said, because of that, the break-in time is next to none. You don't really need to adjust to this football boot as much as you would need to adjust to maybe the Mercurial Vapor at the time, the Mercurial Vapor 15, which in its own right was a pretty good fitting football boot for a wide foot, in my opinion. But this just like is so much better. Then when you move to the rear of the football boot, you get a very nice sculpted heel area with minimal heel pods, but they still do a good job of, providing cushion and locking you in. And then, of course, the midfoot, again, follows that kind of like design where it tapers towards the back and splays out towards the front, giving you that more anatomical fit, which is one of the biggest things that was really important for the Skechers Razor. And that's another major pro. So fit-wise, fantastic. Absolutely love these football boots. The next thing to talk about would be comfort. The comfort of these boots is absolutely incredible. As I already mentioned, you have a very nice, very comfortable upper, which is super malleable and soft. So when you're playing in the boots, you don't get any unnecessary creases. You don't feel like the boots are bunching up on you or squeezing you or piercing you or anything like that. Just super no nonsense. Doesn't feel exactly like wearing a sock, but it's like you're wearing a nice comfy pair of socks on your feet, which is very nice. When you combine that with the insole, this is something that I didn't think would really do anything. If I can get it out. But you guys can see here, you have what Skechers calls the Hyperburst Pro insole. And I thought it wouldn't really do anything because it just seemed like your traditional, suede lined or microfiber lined insole with a nice foam backing at the bottom. But the foam here is significantly more, springy and like it has more of a feel to it compared to the insoles of other football boots. And that's something that I really like. It made playing these boots feel very nice under feet. And while not incredibly noticeable compared to other football boots, especially other speed boots, it is a nice touch to have. And I think that helps make the experience of wearing the Skechers Razor a lot more comfortable. So when you combine that with a pretty solid outsole, which is not too, forgetting the stud pattern, the outsole itself is not too responsive in terms of the aggressiveness of the snapback. It's not too stiff. It's very comfortable. It's easy to sprint on. It's easy to run on. You get a super comfortable package, which is very fun to use as a speed boot. Something that I would absolutely recommend if you want one of the most comfortable experiences when you're playing. Another pro would be the weight. As a speed boot, you expect every football boot that you wear, if you're into speed boots, you'll expect the boot to be light. And this is no slouch when it comes to weight either. Materials used for the forefoot and the upper are super light and thin. As I mentioned, super thin, very one-piece-esque in terms of the construction. And it also uses a very thin nylon outsole with a little bit of a carbon-infused plate going on throughout the back. And then you have your really lightweight but very comfortable insole. As a result, this speed boot feels just as light as any of the other, typical speed boots on the market, like the Adidas F50 or at the time the Crazy Fast, or the Puma Ultra, or the Mercurial, just very lightweight. And, when you're playing in them, obviously, you're not going to feel like there's nothing on your feet, but they don't get in the way. They don't make you feel heavy. They're kind of there. They do their job, and they do so without you really noticing them, which is a great thing to have when you're looking for a pair of speed boots. Next, I'm going to talk about lockdown and responsiveness. I'm going to kind of go with the two hand in hand because lockdown directly contributes to the responsiveness of the football boot. When it comes to lockdown, this thing is fantastic. Even though this is a more wider fitting silo or a wider fitting shape, it still pretty much vacuum seals to your foot whenever you put the boots on. Depending on the shape of your ankles, you may get a bit of dead space around them. For me, I have narrow ankles, as I've said many times, so I'll usually get dead space around the ankle of any boot that doesn't have a high collar. But despite that dead space, I still get locked in very well in the heel thanks to the way it's sculpted. And this wraps my foot very well because my foot is wide and this has a wider shape. Then with the dual lace hole setup that is central, you get a really nice range of adjustable lockdown that you can do with the laces. I like to tie my laces a lot tighter, so I'm just completely locked in whenever I wear these football boots. So, you know, the lockdown on these is absolutely fantastic, something I cannot complain about. And it's definitely up there with some of the, you know, more locked in boots. Like I remember at the time when the Vapor 15 was still current, that was a boot that had really good lockdown. I'd say this is comparable, if not slightly better from my experience, because this has slightly less dead space around the ankle than on the Vapor 15 for me. So, you know, another way that the Skechers Razor kind of outshines Nike, but you know, it's not really going to be considered for that. Now, when you get to responsiveness, obviously with the whole upper being very locked to your foot, you get a really nice feel when you move. Like there's no sloppiness with the boot as you take a step, when you take a touch, when you cut or change direction. The whole boot moves with you. You don't feel like you're gonna slip out, or you don't get any slide, any like weird feelings or notions when you're moving in these football boots. And then a lot of that also comes with the sole plate. I mentioned before that the sole plate was thin and pretty, you know, lightweight. So it will give you a more comfortable feeling, especially because it's not the most responsive. But that being said, it's still very responsive, especially through the midfoot because of this carbon infused plate. It is super snappy through there, very stiff. So it gives you a nice support base when you really want to sprint and take off. But then you also get a very nice amount of snapback and springiness from the actual forefoot. And going back to that part about the football boots being, you know, very comfortable, even though you get that amount of responsiveness and snapback from the actual forefoot and the midfoot, it's not too much to where you feel like, this hurts every time I plant, every time I push off. It's very balanced and it's not neutral, but it's not too much. So it makes for I think if you're someone who wants something that's more natural and won't really hurt you, this is probably one of the best outsoles you can get. Responsive enough to where you get a nice benefit from the actual, you know, piece that's supposed to do, but not too much to where like it's something that a purist would only prefer. So yeah, pretty good. The final thing I'll mention for the pros is going to be the traction or the outsole. And this is kind of also a midpoint because depending on how you like your studs, you might not see this as a good thing. But if you're someone like me who likes some more aggressive traction, this is definitely one of the best outsoles you can get. As you can see, this is a complete chevron blade stud pattern. Very reminiscent, I won't lie, to the Mercurials from, I think, Superfly 5, Vapor 11, up to Superfly 8, Vapor 14. It's more or less the exact same stud pattern. And we all knew from that stud pattern that it was very, very good when it came to traction, especially in the forwards direction. This had a lot of bite, a lot of grip. And, you know, if you're sprinting, you knew you were going to dig into the ground and move like as fast as possible because you're getting the maximum amount of traction, bite, and grip from the outsole. The only reason why this becomes a midpoint is because when you're playing on artificial ground, of course, a stud pattern like this is far from ideal. This is the last thing you want to play on with artificial ground. But if it's the only thing that you have, you know, you got to make do with it. The reason why it's a midpoint is because, as we all know, with artificial ground, when you're playing with bladed studs or more aggressive shaped studs, those can get caught in the turf a lot more easily. So as a result, when you're trying to turn, twist, or pivot, it puts a lot more stress on your joints, especially on your ankles and your knees. I know this firsthand because I get like a lot of like knee pain after playing with these boots on artificial grass. But it's not really just these boots, it's just speed boots in general. And I know I really shouldn't be doing it, but I do it anyways because I figure like I'll just tough it out, you know, that's just that warrior mentality. But yeah, for the average person, especially if you really care about your knees and your ankles and your hips, this stud pattern may not be the best for you, especially if you play on artificial ground a lot. And because of that, I'd say that I think Skechers should release an artificial ground variant of this, just so that, you know, you get the same, you know, speedy profile of the boots and the same, like, or a considerably, you know, similar amount of traction, but without putting so much injury risk into your feet when you're playing in them. Even on firm grass, can be a bit much at times, but for me personally, I really enjoy the experience you get from having the chevron blade stud pattern. So I'm not going to complain too much about it. It's more of a pro for me than a midpoint. If anything, like I really like this, and I wish like more speed boots did a more aggressive approach like this. But again, to each their own, right? But yeah, that's it for the outsole, and that's it for the pros. As you guys can see, there's a lot to really like about this football boot. Now we're going to get into the cons, and honestly, I don't think there's much to really hate about this football boot. For me, I have two specific ones. The first one would be the durability. Honestly, through using these boots as much as I've had them for about 6-7 months, as I mentioned at the start of this video, And just looking at where things have gone wrong, I feel like Skechers could have done a bit more on the quality control side. Um, for me, the main areas where I see durability issues are the studs. So I don't know how obvious it is, but you can tell that the studs in the forefoot are very worn down. They're a lot shorter than they used to be and a lot less sharp. And I mean, the sharpness is expected the more you use a pair of football boots. You're going to lose some of that, factory fresh sharpness that you get to the chevron blade studs. But they just seem to have shortened a bit. Unless I'm crazy and these were actually these short to begin with, I feel like these were just longer before and they just kind of wore down way too fast, in my opinion. The next area of concern would be the sole plate junctions or the sole plate upper junctions. And I don't know how well you can see like from the footage right now. I'm probably going to put some B-roll up to show you guys exactly where I'm having these issues. But this right here is pretty extreme sole separation, which I'm not having on something like my Vapor, for example. I'm not having it on my Crazy Fast or my F50 either. And I do have some of it on my Speed Portal Plus, but I've had that boot for 2 years, which is nothing, which is a lot more compared to what I've had this boot for. So, seeing that kind of sole plate separation happening here, especially on the lateral side, is very weird. I'm not having it on the medial side, but it's on the lateral side, which just doesn't happen usually. This is on my left boot, and then if I go to my right boot, it's about the same. Like, I'm not getting as much sole separation, or not nearly as much on this one. But again, the same issue with the studs, which is kind of annoying. And then internally, you can't see it, and I also kind of tore it out a bit. But on the inside of both boots, the internal liner, the mesh liner that was kind of lining the Flyknit to give it some structure, after about 3 uses, it started to tear away and peel away. And that's really weird because that's never happened to me with any of my football boots. So again, I don't know if it's a quality control thing and maybe I got a weird pair, but just seeing that kind of durability and to see the boots start falling apart so soon after I got them and started using them, it was not very encouraging in terms of Skechers brand image. And then the second con when I get the Skechers brand image is actually the price. So these football boots, believe it or not, I'm in Canada, so I'll give you the Canadian price. Believe it or not, these are $340 Canadian. Now, I'm not here to argue whether they are worth that much for what they offer in performance, because when you compare these to something like the Mercurial Vapor 16, which you have now, or the Adidas F50 Elite, or the Puma Ultra 5 Ultimate, like these definitely perform at the same way as those. So in terms of performance, I guess the price is justified. But when you consider who Skechers is, and you compare them to these other brands, even some smaller brands who are not nearly on the level of Nike or Adidas or Puma in the football boot world, but are still, pretty established. When you see what they're charging for their boots and what Skechers is charging for the Razor, and also the SKX by extension, it's like, why would I go pick this up? You know what I mean? Skechers doesn't have that pull. Like when I was growing up, and even to some degree, when I see Skechers, or when I saw Skechers, or when other people I knew saw Skechers, we kind of just laugh at them because we didn't think they were cool. We thought they were like, joke shoes for like, your entry level shoe when you're a kid. Everyone wanted to get the Adidas, the Nikes, the Pumas, the whatevers, but Skechers was always looked down upon and laughed upon. And it's kind of like sad because Skechers does make good shoes, and by extension now they do make good football boots. But because of that reputation and the fact that Skechers is new to the football boot world, I don't think they should be charging $340 for a pair of football boots, especially when they're nowhere near as established as Nike or Adidas or Puma. This football boot could have been a complete bust. Luckily, it wasn't, because this was Skechers' first ever speed boot, right? Luckily, it wasn't, and it's actually really good. But again, no one knew that. And so if you're trying to attract customers, this is my personal opinion, but if you're trying to attract customers to your boot, especially if you're a new brand on the scene, it doesn't make any sense to charge as much as a brand that is well established and is selling a boot that is super competitive, like the Mercurial, for example. If I went to you and I told you, hey, I have the Skechers Razor for $340 or the Mercurial Vapor 16 for $340, 9 times out of 10, maybe 10 times out of 10, I guarantee whoever I ask will probably pick the Mercurial Vapor 16 because they know Nike has been making Mercurials for over 25 years. They know Mercurials are quality. They know Mercurials have been at the top of the speed boot world for so long. Maybe if you're an enthusiast, you'll want to take a chance on the Razor, but not if you're just the average player. And because of that, I feel like that's a con of the Razor. Skechers is really kind of shooting themselves in the foot by not, pricing these a bit lower, especially when you compare it to something like the Puma Ultra, for example. The Ultra 5 is $285 Canadian and is arguably the best speed boot on the market right now, even better than the Vapor 16, in my opinion. But, it's 285, and because Puma's established, imagine someone saying, oh yeah, here, take a Razor or take a Puma Ultra 5 Ultimate. First of all, you're going to take Puma because you trust them more, unless you consider the fact that their previous Ultra was not the best received. But, Puma still has that name in the game. And for the fact that their boot is $60 cheaper than what you're getting with this, it's a no-brainer. I would probably pick the Puma Ultra 5 unless I saw this at a discounted price. So, yeah, I apologize for that little rant or spiel I went on about, like, the price, but it is something that I feel holds back the Skechers Razor from really reaching its true potential and being as appealing to the public as it should be. I feel like if these were priced at, closer to that 270 or 280 range, maybe even 290, maybe even something like similar to like New Balance, how they priced their Furon at 299. If it was just a little lower, I think it would make a bigger impression on players because, it's another speed boot alternative, but it's cheaper. So maybe you're getting something that's really good for a cheaper price and maybe you'll want to take a chance on it. But other than that, there's nothing really else I can say that I don't like about these football boots. They are fantastic in pretty much every other way. And so apart from durability and the price, which is something that I feel like the price is something Skechers needs to sort out on their own. And with the durability, I feel like I might have got a defective pair because I haven't heard of anyone experiencing similar durability issues to me. I think these are fantastic. So for my final thoughts on these football boots, I would say these are absolutely fantastic. Honestly, like I mentioned earlier with my whole rant about pricing, I feel like these are going to get swept under the rug because they are priced so high for regular retail. 340 Canadian, I cannot stress enough, is just not a price that I would offer a football boot at, especially when it's an entry level football boot. That, like, it's your first foray into the speed boot world. You're competing with Nike, Adidas, Puma, New Balance, Mizuno, all of who are established and have really good products. And while these are fantastic football boots, you can't really, as a brand, you shouldn't be shooting yourself in the foot by pricing them at the same level because that just deters people from wanting to try them, especially when you're a new brand and you're a brand that, if anything, doesn't really have the most hype amongst youngsters, if you guys understand what I'm saying. But the price out of the way, these are absolutely amazing, as I've said numerous times. Upper, fantastic, super lightweight, super durable, perfect touch on the ball, very raw and pingy, but also enough cushion to where you feel comfortable and locked in. Lockdown, fantastic, dual lace hole setup. You get the heel cushions and you get the overall anatomic shape, which is good for wide-footed players and narrow-footed players and will keep you locked in and supported no matter what. You get some of the best aggressive traction on the market right now if that's what you want. If you're someone who's into something that's more artificially ground, biased or, better for artificial ground, these may not be for you. But if you're someone who prefers that pure speed boot-esque like experience and wants something with aggressive traction, it pretty much doesn't get better than this. This is probably the most aggressive traction you can get. And when you pair that with the super responsive outsole, you get just such a fantastic package to play in with the Skechers Razor. These are genuinely some of my favorite boots to use. And I would get another pair if not for the fact that I don't really want to spend any money on cleats right now because, cleats are expensive. But yeah, just so good. And I would highly recommend these to anyone who's interested in them. Now, I know I mentioned that the price is a lot, but don't fear because since these, as far as I know, do not sell well, you can easily find them discounted on many soccer sites and get them for like closer to like 200, 250. I've seen a few for even like less at like 150 because these weren't selling. And I honestly think that's a travesty because these boots are so good. I even wager to say that these are better than the current Vapor 16 right now. And that's for me personally. But like, I'm not even kidding. These are that good. They are severely underrated. So if you get a chance, if you're in the market for a new pair of boots, or you want to try something new and just see something that's, unique, really, I'm telling you guys, go get the Skechers Razor because these boots will not disappoint. They are fantastic in every way. So much fun to play in, so lightweight, super comfortable, but so well performance oriented. It's honestly a shame that they don't get the love that they deserve, because honestly, I'm sure you put a Nike swoosh on these or an Adidas three stripes, these sell out instantly. Fantastic football boots, without a doubt. I could go on and on and on about how good these are, but you guys get the point. So I'm going to thank you guys for watching this review. I know it's been a very long time coming, and I know my uploads have been very, inconsistent recently. You know, Dealing with an injury is not fun. It really hinders how well I can, go out and train and record videos. And I'm not the kind of person, I want to say player and person at the same time, but I'm not the type of person who really likes to sit in front of the camera and talk, apart from doing these reviews, of course. I'd rather just show you guys what I'm up to and just, actually provide training videos. But it's looking like I'm going to have to pivot to that. So stay tuned for more content coming soon. I'm going to try. I know I say this all the time. I'm going to try and be more consistent with my uploads. I promise. And, just thank you guys for all the support on my channel, really, watching my content, leaving the supportive comments, likes, everything. All of you who subscribed, I really appreciate it. It means a lot, and it helps me stay motivated to keep bringing you guys content, keep doing this stuff, talking about boots, doing training sessions and whatever. So just stay along for the journey, stay along for the ride. I got lots of stuff coming soon, even though sometimes it might take a little longer to come out. It's on the way, I promise. And like I said at the start of this video, if you enjoyed this video, please like, comment, and subscribe. It really means a lot to me, and it shows me that you guys really love the content and want to see more. Without further ado, thank you all for watching, and I will see you all in my next video. Take care.